Revenge with Karen.
You're fired for fraud. That's how my Tuesday started me, sitting in pajama bottoms and a blazer, getting terminated live on Zoom in front of 84 employees, and someone's barking golden retriever. April, freshly promoted, over-perfumed, and high on nepotism, smiled like she'd just won a damn Emmy. We've discovered unauthorized travel reimbursements totaling $1,000, she declared, like she caught me embezzling oil futures. She leaned in close to her webcam, all smug. Effective immediately, you are terminated for expense fraud. I didn't cry, didn't scream, I didn't even blink. I just unmuted, looked straight into my Logitech C920 and said, "You'll want to verify those receipts before 9 a.m. Then I left the call. Now listen, before we dive face first into the flaming wreckage that was April's career, do me a favor. 95% of folks who hear stories like this don't hit that subscribe button or click like. But it helps the team keep digging up these delicious little corporate train wrecks. So smash that button, will ya? Thanks, now back to the chaos. Let's rewind. I'm Nina. I worked in regulatory compliance for a manufacturing company with more federal oversight than a pharmaceutical plant run by squirrels. I wasn't flashy. No corner office, no stock options, no LinkedIn posts about synergy. I was the woman in steel-toe boots and a hard hat, walking through regional plants and making damn sure we weren't shipping oxygen tanks with duct tape. Every month, I flew to one or two facilities scattered across the Midwest, places where the local diner knows your name and the airport is just a barn with a runway. My job was simple but sacred. Perform federally mandated site inspections, file reports in the compliance database, and make sure we didn't get slapped with fines so big they'd knock the CFO's veneers loose. Each visit required a checklist signed by a federal liaison. Each expense logged down to the cent. Hotel, $132.19. Meals, receipts clipped with timestamps. Uber to the plant, documented, geotagged, matched with the federal form. Could run a forensic audit through my spreadsheets and still not find a typo. But April didn't see that. She saw a $1,000 reimbursement that landed the same week she was promoted to head of HR, a title invented by her uncle, our CFO, who thought compliance was just a buzzword you throw into earnings calls. April had a mission: make a name for herself by cracking down on waste. She started hunting for villains in the printer room. First, it was someone who ordered too many pens. Then it was two guys from IT who dared expense lunch during a server crash. Then she found me. That fateful week, I'd just come back from a plant visit in Indiana. Not Vegas, not the Bahamas, Indiana. I inspected a welding site that had 2 prior citations for unsealed tanks, and this time, we actually passed. I even got a thank you from the federal inspector for catching a mislabeled shipment. 3 days later, Zoom firing. Live, no warning, no private chat. Just April pulling up a screen share with my reimbursement PDF, all smug like she'd cracked the Zodiac code. The thing is, that receipt she showed, the one for $1,000, it wasn't just a receipt. It was a signed federal document. Bottom corner, stamped by a Department of Compliance rep. That travel April flagged, it was required. Non-negotiable, and the kicker: if that inspection wasn't filed, our entire shipping system would be flagged as non-compliant. I didn't argue, didn't waste oxygen. I logged off, opened my inbox, and sent exactly one email. Subject, receipt. Attachment, scanned inspection paperwork, including the government liaison's signature, time of inspection, and routing confirmation into the federal database. I CC'd HR, legal, and for fun, April. Then I poured myself a coffee, opened a new tab, and pulled up the onboarding packet from a competitor who'd been courting me for weeks. The sun hadn't even risen on their disaster yet, but it would, in less than 12 hours, because that inspection I did in Indiana, it was the linchpin in a quarterly compliance cascade. Remove it, and the whole thing unravels. And April had just yanked the pin. You could tell April had been practicing that smug little speech in her bathroom mirror, probably in front of one of those motivational quote decals that says something like "Boss Babe Energy" in curly pink font. Her voice was all sugar and scalpel as she kicked off the full company Zoom. 84 boxes lit up with sleepy coworkers munching on granola bars or sipping burnt office coffee, thinking this was just another Thursday check-in. And then April said it. "Before we begin, I want to address a serious breach of company ethics." The whole call froze. Everyone loves a good train wreck when it's not their seatbelt getting sliced. April pulled up a screen share, dramatic as a reality TV villain. A reimbursement form filled the screen, my name on top, a total at the bottom, $1,046.37. This expense was submitted last week, she said, practically vibrating with self-importance. Flights, meals, lodging, all allegedly related to a mandatory site inspection in Indiana. Allegedly? She said it like I'd faked my own work trip just to get a free Hampton Inn breakfast and a rental car that smelled like sadness. April kept going. After a thorough review, we found no authorized travel requests for this trip. There's no HR record, no CFO signature, and no itinerary registered with our travel vendor. Therefore, effective immediately, she paused, beaming, milking it. Nina is terminated for submitting fraudulent expenses. It was so quiet you could hear someone's toddler knock over a cereal bowl in the background. I could practically feel the blood leave my face, but I kept my voice level. I clicked the unmute button, leaned in just enough to let her see the steel in my eyes, and said, "You'll want to verify those receipts before 9 a.m. Click, logged out. The kind of silence that follows a click like that isn't just technical. It's existential. I imagine April sat there blinking, way a cat looks when you move the furniture, and it doesn't know where to sit anymore. I stood up from my kitchen table, heart hammering like a jackhammer in my ribcage, and paced the floor with the nervous energy of a woman who just lit a fuse and couldn't wait for the boom. Because here's the thing about April, she thought HR ruled the world. She thought a flashy new promotion and a CFO uncle meant she could bulldoze departments she didn't understand. She thought expenses were about dollars. She didn't know they were about federal compliance. That Indiana trip, it was one of 6 required quarterly inspections for our remote manufacturing sites. Without it, the government doesn't just frown at you. They shut you down. The receipt she flashed on screen, that wasn't a receipt. That was the signed documentation of a site pass, reviewed, timestamped, scanned into the federal oversight portal, already logged in our internal compliance archive. But April didn't know that, because April never bothered to ask. And now she'd fired the only registered auditor in the company with a federal access badge during an active inspection window. By noon, our plants would be flagged. By end of day, client shipments would be on hold. And at 9 a.m., the Federal Compliance Office would check the database for the Indiana report. Spoiler alert, they wouldn't find it, because I hadn't submitted it yet. Not until the internal approval trail cleared. Not until HR verified my expense. Not until April did her job. She thought she caught a fraud. What she actually did was block a federally required inspection from being filed. And by 9 a.m., that omission was going to slap her so hard it would echo through every shipping lane we used. So I made a cup of tea, pulled out the employment contract I'd signed the night before, with our main competitor, and waited. Tick, tock. At 6:42 p.m., while April was probably sipping celebratory Prosecco with her feet up on a desk she didn't earn, I opened a new email and attached the single most underrated bombshell in corporate history. A scanned, 3-page receipt stamped by the U.S. Department of Regulatory Compliance. The header alone was enough to make any legal intern break into a flop sweat. Mandatory field site inspection. 3rd quarter compliance audit region 6. The signature at the bottom. 1 Mr. Trevor B. Lindholm, Federal Liaison for Site Oversight. Under it, the timestamp. 11:08 a.m. Eastern. Same day April had torched my reputation on Zoom. Subject line, termination/expense inquiry body. Hello, please find attached the federally signed inspection receipt for Plant 6B in Monroe County, Indiana. This audit is part of our ongoing compliance agreement, as outlined in our Federal Operations Charter. The attached routing confirmation shows successful upload into the USTRC audit system. As a reminder, this inspection wasn't optional. Regards, Nina F. I CC'd legal, HR, the CFO, and April herself, just so she'd feel that cold metal barrel of reality press against her career temple before the trigger pulled. Then I clicked send. There's a specific kind of calm that washes over you when you know the house of cards is about to come down, and you're the only one standing outside with a lawn chair and popcorn. That was me. No rage, no vindictive fantasy, just the tight, steady heartbeat of someone who knows the hurricane is coming, and that her name is on the only life raft. I leaned back in my chair and reread the receipt, savoring the details April had clearly missed. Page 1, site details, my badge number, inspection scope, equipment labeling, ventilation system certs, chemical storage logs. Page 2. Travel approval from the Federal Liaison's Office, cleared via emergency routing due to a surge in overdue inspections. Page 3. Signature block confirmation code, upload routing trail, showing it entered the federal portal less than 4 minutes after the visit concluded. April had probably skimmed the top line, travel/inspection approval, and assumed it was some junk form I'd forged in Microsoft Word. She didn't check the metadata, didn't trace the source, didn't realize that my inspections weren't just rubber stamps, they were critical chain links in legal shipment clearance. And now that chain was broken. There's a field in the federal database, visible only to credentialed compliance officers and legal liaisons, called attestation flag. When it's green, the company is cleared for shipping from the associated site. When it's red, every outbound truck, rail load, and air cargo unit tied to that plant is automatically halted. I knew that because I helped set it up. I sat in the boring meetings. I filled out the initial database profiles. I wrote the SOP April never read, and the attestation flag for Monroe County's Plant 6B, still red. Still waiting on the file I hadn't yet submitted. Internal compliance has one rule: nothing gets uploaded until HR clears travel reimbursement. April thought she was cutting fat. What she cut was the artery that kept our entire logistics flow legally alive. I shut my laptop, stood, stretched, let the countdown begin. The storm would start with a call from legal, some junior paralegal trying to clarify discrepancies. Then come the frantic emails from ops when their outbound manifests started bouncing. Then, right on cue, the government would notice the absence of inspection verification. And then, April's entire self-congratulatory empire would crack under the weight of a $1,000 receipt, a receipt she never bothered to read. At 8:45 a.m. sharp, the first domino wobbled. Legal got an email with the subject line, "No one wants to see unless they're halfway through a bottle of bourbon. Urgent. Compliance record incomplete." Flagged for non-submission, the body was even worse. The following required site inspection has not been submitted into the federal compliance database. Site: Plant 6B, Monroe County, in Auditor of Record. Nina Franklin, as of 8:45 a.m. EST, your compliance certification for this facility is invalid. All affiliated shipments must be held until rectified. 3 minutes later, Eagle was on a call with operations trying to figure out why outbound freight was being denied clearance codes. By 9:00 a.m., the blocks multiplied. 3 other plants I'd visited that quarter, all pending final file uploads, were also flagged. I hadn't sent the inspection documents because April had fired me before HR could close out the reimbursements, which meant the portal hadn't greenlit submission. That's how tightly woven the system was. My badge wasn't just a name tag. It was the keystone of every shipment leaving those plants. By 9:10 a.m., the panic was a full-blown inferno. The red flags in the compliance system triggered automated shipment holds. Every truck that tried to scan out got slapped with a digital handbrake. Forklifts stopped mid-load. Operations leads were yelling across warehouse floors, trying to figure out why their dispatch queues froze like a Windows 98 crash. Phones lit up like a Christmas rave. Client A, why is our order marked delayed, non-compliant origin? Client B, are you under investigation? Client C, should we pause payment until this is sorted? Meanwhile, in HR, April was pale as printer paper. She'd just gotten her first reply from legal. Is it true Nina was terminated yesterday? At what time? She didn't answer. Instead, opened her Zoom dashboard and tried to quietly delete the recording of the all-hands meeting from the cloud archive. Unfortunately for April, the admin setting was changed after that incident in finance last quarter, the one where someone dropped an F-bomb mid-presentation. Now all recordings were auto-backed up to legal's review folder. She clicked delete. Pop-up. This action is restricted. Please contact system administrator. She clicked it again. Same result. Somewhere in IT, a junior sysadmin saw the access attempt and flagged it in Slack. Hey, why is April trying to nuke the Zoom archive? Now the cracks were visible. People started whispering. Slack DMs pinged like firecrackers. Someone in marketing screenshotted the moment on Zoom where I'd said, "You'll want to verify those receipts before 9 a.m., and posted it in a private channel labeled #AprilDidWhat. By 9:15, CFO's assistant was seen power walking down the hallway with a printout. Not a laptop, a printout. That's the corporate equivalent of a priest arriving in your hospital room. The thing is, this wasn't just about me. It was about 3 whole regional sites that were now radioactive. Every plant I'd audited was a compliance node in a federal chain. You pull out the node, the chain snaps. And April didn't just pull it, she torched it live on camera. No one realized yet, except maybe the CFO, who was already sweating through his shirt, was that those inspections weren't just required by federal law. They were written into our client contracts. Clause 14, all vendors must maintain continuous federal compliance certification to retain active shipment status. By 9:30 a.m., that clause was about to become the noose. And all because April wanted to make an example. Well, she did, just not the one she planned. By 9:45 a.m., the wheels had fully come off the clown car. Someone from operations, Doug, I think, bless his well-meaning heart, had been hastily assigned to step in and handle the compliance uploads until things got sorted. Doug had 3 things working against him. He had never done a site inspection. He thought OSHA and USDA were the same agency. And most critically, his name wasn't on the federal credential list. Logged into the audit portal, tried to upload a backdated file using notes he scraped from an old SharePoint folder, and got this polite but vicious message: access denied, auditor not recognized by System Credential Registry. Please contact your federal liaison to request a registered key holder. Doug blinked at the screen, tried again. Same thing. By 10 o'clock a.m., he was in legal's office sweating through his dockers. I can't get into the portal, he said, voice rising an octave. It says I don't exist. The lead counsel, Marcy, looked up from her monitor with a slow, dawning horror. Wait, didn't Nina hold the access credential? Doug nodded like a scared puppy. Now, 6 months ago, legal had made a quiet decision, on my suggestion actually, to consolidate federal access to one registered individual per compliance region. Less chance of redundant files, tighter control, fewer audit risks. For Region 6, that was me. My name, my badge number, and my federal signature key, registered and cleared through a notarized affidavit. In short, no Nina, no uploads. April hadn't just fired someone who filed paperwork. She'd fired the only person who could legally update the federal system for half our shipping network. By 10:20 a.m., the lawyer started asking a very quiet, very dangerous question. Wait, was Nina actually authorized? Because up until that point, everyone had taken April at her word, that I was shady, that I submitted fake expenses, that I'd gone rogue. But now the system was saying the opposite. Now the system was saying, she's the only one we trust. April doubled down, voice sharp with that rising panic pitch. She said she was authorized. I could never verify it. She operated independently for years. No one checked her work. Marcy pulled up the compliance archive, opened the credential file folder, and clicked on the most recent registration form. There it was, my signature, the federal stamp. Legal's cosign, dated 6 months ago. Marcy didn't say anything for a long time. Then, she wasn't just authorized. She built the current system. Doug turned a little green. April stared at the screen like it had just slapped her across the face. Then legal hit play on the Zoom recording. You are terminated for fraud. April's voice rang out, proud and clear. Then my voice, calm, quiet, deliberate. You'll want to verify those receipts before 9 a.m. The room went still. Marcy leaned back, arms crossed. Do we have those receipts? April mumbled something about maybe in her inbox. Marcy opened the forwarded email. Read it again. Then, flat as a dead battery, she wasn't submitting fraud. She was submitting a federally mandated inspection that we're now failing to report. Silence. Then someone from IT knocked and stuck their head in the door. External portals flagging the company as non-cooperative. We just lost auto clearance for outbound shipments. Doug blinked. What does that mean? It means, Marcy said, our cargo doesn't move until we fix this. She stood, looked at April. You fired a federal auditor during a required inspection window with a valid credential. On video. April opened her mouth, closed it. No spin left, no bluff left. It wasn't fraud. It was federal duty. And April had cut the wrong wire. By 10:45 a.m., legal was holding onto its composure like a toddler clutching a helium balloon in a wind tunnel. The compliance system had gone from blinking yellow to flashing red, and every corner of the company was flailing in slow-motion panic. But it wasn't until George, yes, that George, the crusty compliance officer in Cincinnati, who still used a flip phone, dug through his archives and forwarded an old email thread that the real weight of it all hit. The subject line read, Credential Consolidation Region 6 recommendations attached. A thread dated 6 months ago, timestamped at 6:12 a.m. on a Monday, because I never slept properly and started most of my mornings with bad coffee and worse foresight. My original email to legal, CC'd to compliance, ops, and yes, even the CFO and April. Read like a prophecy now. As discussed on last week's call, consolidating access under one credential per region will streamline our reporting and reduce risk. But we must make sure HR doesn't interrupt audit cycles or suspend travel approvals without verifying if the inspection window is active. If these audits are ever skipped, federal compliance will flag us, and our shipments will freeze. We'll not be able to retroactively submit from a non-credentialed employee. Please confirm you're aligned on this before we formalize the protocol. Nina Franklin, I'd even bolded the phrase "our shipments will freeze," like I knew someone in this company would need it tattooed across their forehead. George's note at the top of the forwarded thread was short and scathing. Thought you'd want this. We were warned. G Legal read it. The CFO read it. April tried to pretend she hadn't, then remembered that her name was visible right there in the CC field, sitting like a loaded gun. She tried to argue that we get a lot of emails, and there's no way I could read every message from every department, but no one was listening anymore. Because now it was proof. Concrete, time-stamped, federal protocol triggering proof that Nina had laid out the risks in perfect, agonizing detail. They had brushed her off like she was overreacting. The same woman they'd called a fraud had, half a year ago, sent them a personalized, actionable warning with all the legal implications spelled out in size 12 Arial. She wasn't just the last line of defense. She had been waving the damn red flag 6 months ago, and they deleted her. The CFO looked like someone had poured bleach into his morning smoothie. April, suddenly small in her designer blazer, crossed her arms like body language could rewrite email headers. The general counsel spoke next, and his voice had that finality to it, the tone people use when they're not just talking about damage control but career autopsies. She documented everything, and we ignored her. Worse, we publicly fired her. There it was, the truth, sour and metallic in the air. They didn't just fire Nina. They erased the one person who knew how to keep the wheels from falling off. Now the wheels weren't just off. They were rolling backwards into a ditch filled with client lawsuits and regulatory fines. Someone whispered, "What if she sues?" Marcy, who had gone quiet again, finally answered, "We should be more worried about whether she talks. Because it was one thing to make a mistake. It was another thing to be warned, in writing, and do it anyway." Now the full picture was finally sinking in. They hadn't uncovered a fraud, manufactured a scandal out of ego and ignorance. And the woman they humiliated had receipts, signatures, credentials, and now, undeniable moral high ground. In the hallway, someone from sales shouted, "Client just pulled their order. Says we're under review." No one moved. The dominoes were still falling. And Nina, she wasn't just the warning they missed. She was the reckoning they deserved. At exactly 11:03 a.m., the company's main client, one of those multinational behemoths whose logo ends up on shipping containers, government contracts, and every third billboard outside a military base, called the CEO's direct line. Not his assistant, not an account manager. His line, the voice on the other end wasn't angry. That would have been manageable. No, it was worse. It was curious. "Why are you listed as non-compliant in the federal database?" Just 10 words, spoken with the calm precision of someone who already knew the answer, but wanted to hear you fumble it out loud. That question triggered a corporate aneurysm. The CEO hung up without replying, stormed out of his glass box office and into legal like a thundercloud wearing a Rolex. Legal, now huddled around a copy of my emailed receipts, looked up like kids caught drawing on the walls in Sharpie. Marcy, still pale, grabbed her phone and started dialing the federal compliance office, the same one I used to deal with quarterly. She rattled off our company ID, the site code, and a string of desperate-sounding questions about reinstatement. She didn't even get past urgent upload clearance before the woman on the other end cut her off. "Only the registered auditor can file." "I understand, but she's no longer with the company," Marcy said. "Then your credential is invalid. Need a new registration, which takes approximately 10-12 business days, and a federal onboarding review." Marcy's voice went brittle, but we're mid-cycle. The woman sighed, "I know, so was your auditor." Click. Meanwhile, April was no longer trying to defend her actions. She was trying to undo them. She dug up my last known number, dialed it, and listened to it go straight to voicemail. Again, then a fourth time. She didn't know I'd already rerouted calls through my new firm's reception desk. The message they received: Miss Franklin is currently unavailable. Please direct all inquiries to her compliance counsel. April, panicked, typed up a text. Can we talk? Urgent. Your inspection files. No read receipt. Just the cold blue bubble of desperation floating into the void. At 11:17 a.m., the CFO barked, get me the firing email. April hesitated. It's on the shared drive, under terminations Franklin. The CFO clicked, opened it, scanned the timestamp, then froze. Wait, he said, finger on the screen. This was sent at 11:08 a.m. yesterday. Yes, April said cautiously. He stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Do you realize that was during her inspection? The one with the timestamp she sent this morning? April blinked. She didn't notify HR. She didn't need to, he snapped. It was federally scheduled. Her travel was in the compliance calendar. It synced to ops. He spun the monitor around. The system showed it clearly. Nina Franklin Plant 6B on-site verification audit 9 o'clock a.m. to 12 o'clock p.m. In red, overlaid like a scarlet letter, audit not submitted flagged. Marcy just shook her head. You terminated her mid-inspection. On camera. During a federally logged visit, room filled with the static hum of collective dread. April tried again. Can't we just upload something to fix it? No, Marcy said. You can't fake a federal inspection. That's not a compliance issue, that's fraud. The word echoed hard against the conference room glass. Everyone looked at each other like the walls were closing in. And the worst part, they weren't wrong. They were just boxed in, trapped by their own arrogance and an unshakable digital paper trail. No workaround, no PR spin, no intern to throw under the bus. The only person who could fix it wasn't answering their calls, because they hadn't just lost their auditor. They declared war on her, and now she was the only one with the keys to stop the bleeding. By noon, the whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were full-blown panic pings bouncing around Slack like a fire alarm in a submarine. Someone in sales had a friend at one of our competitors, the lean, aggressive outfit across town that used to be 3 steps behind us in every RFP. Word was they just aced a surprise federal inspection. Clean, no flags, no delays, no questions. Someone in logistics confirmed it. The same inspection I was supposed to do for us at Plant 6B, I'd done it for them. Clean site, updated records, full attestation. Compliance badge N. Franklin, yeah, that's right. I didn't just walk away. I walked straight into a company that knew exactly what my signature was worth. See, while April was busy digging through old expense reports looking for gotchas, the competition was watching the fallout. They'd heard about the Zoom firing within hours. Not from me, I didn't say a word, but from someone's cousin who knew someone in ops. Word spreads fast when the blood hits the water. And instead of gloating, they picked up the phone. Quietly, smartly. Do you be open to a consulting contract? Discreet, of course. No press. Just help us get our audit calendar tightened up. I didn't say yes right away. I didn't need to. They sent over a draft within the hour, a 6-month retainer, full clearance access, and something that sealed it, immediate submission to the Federal Registry under a new credential set. Not a replacement. A transfer. They duplicated the same compliance node I once held, only now it was attached to their company's profile. My badge was reissued. My name stamped into their audit framework like it had always been there. By the time the feds came knocking with a surprise check, I was already logged into their portal, verifying the fire suppression systems and cross-checking chemical manifests like I'd never missed a beat. The inspection? Glowing. The auditor even commented, wish more vendors were this prepared. And when that got around, the rumor reached procurement that the competitor had passed my inspection, while our company sat on red flags and excuses, the writing was on the wall in permanent ink. Because guess who was up for a multi-million-dollar government contract? Both companies. Guess which one now had a perfect compliance score and no federal flags. Guess which one had 3 plants frozen, a non-submission mark in the system, a lawyer with eye twitching so bad it needed its own HR case. The CFO got the update from a contact in the Department of Defense. The RFP shortlist was shrinking, and our company had just been temporarily paused due to active compliance irregularities. They were losing the bid. To me, April's name hadn't been mentioned once, but her fingerprints were all over the crime scene. The final nail. Someone in marketing found an old photo of me from a company retreat, Still floating on the intranet, a group shot with me off to the side, smiling awkwardly, wearing a badge that read Compliance Officer Trusted Authority. They paired it next to a screenshot of the current federal site registry. Same name, different company. The caption underneath read, "She didn't quit, she just upgraded." And just like that, I wasn't a ghost in their system anymore. It was the architect of their irrelevance. I'd crossed the bridge, signed the deal, submitted the reports, and made myself irreplaceable. And I made sure that bridge burned behind me. At exactly 9 a.m. the next morning, because the universe has a cruel sense of timing, the main office line rang. Not legal, not HR. The main reception desk, where a bewildered intern transferred the call straight to the general counsel's office because, quote, said they're federal and wouldn't hold. Marcy picked up, put it on speaker. The voice on the other end was clipped and professional. No greeting, no small talk, just cold, clinical clarity. "This is Auditor Helen Cross from the U.S., Department of Regulatory Compliance. We've been reviewing your flagged inspection cycle for Region 6. Everyone in the room tensed. We're missing verified documentation from Plant 6B and the surrounding 3 facilities. According to our logs, these inspections were scheduled under your former employee, Nina Franklin. The portal shows she was removed from access on the 12th at 11:08 a.m. Silence. Can someone confirm why? No one spoke. Then Helen continued, not waiting for a reply. Just to clarify, your company is currently under federal review for non-submission of mandatory audits. Your only credentialed compliance officer was terminated during an active inspection window. Still silence. Before we escalate this, she said, with the delicate thread of paperwork behind every word, I have one question for the record. Who did you fire? Marcy didn't answer. Couldn't. She just looked over at April, who sat frozen in the corner, one hand limp on her mouse, the other clenched so tightly her acrylic nails looked like they'd snap. The CFO, pale, sweaty, uttering under his breath, finally croaked, "We let go of Miss Franklin." HR flagged an expense issue. A pause on the line. "I see," Helen said. "We'll proceed accordingly." Click. The room didn't move, then came the ping. A new email, from me. Subject line, Compliance Closure Final Receipts Body. Good morning, per your ongoing review, please find attached all federally authorized receipts tied to my final audit cycle. Any future compliance matters related to Region 6 or credentialed inspection access. Kindly forward your inquiries to my new firm. Regards, Nina Franklin, Compliance Specialist, Red Bridge Solutions. Attached was a single PDF. 3 pages. Titled, Zoom Termination Transcript 11:08 a.m. EST. Highlighted in yellow, you are terminated for fraud. Effective immediately. April Jensen. Char timestamp. During federally scheduled inspection window, the PDF footer was a legal watermark, reviewed and time-synced by third-party transcription. They couldn't argue it, couldn't spin it, couldn't bury it. It was irrefutable. The moment they fired me, they torched their own regulatory spine. The transcript was now official. My receipts were clean. My signature relocated. The board was already on emergency call #3 of the morning. April was summoned to join. As she logged in, the screen showed 6 little video boxes, each with a board member who looked like they'd skipped coffee and gone straight to antacids. And then her camera came on. There was no makeup, no confident smile, no "I got this" attitude. Just a pale, frozen woman with raccoon eyes and a 1,000-yard stare. The CFO leaned into frame and said what everyone was thinking. She fired the only person who could have saved us. April didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The final shot. Her expression as one board member quietly asked, "So, who exactly promoted her?" Game over. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.